Now the judges will introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Michael Anderson. I live 2 inches from Canada on most maps in Walker, Minnesota. And I am a retired professor, a retired administrator, and work with Native Americans here in the North. I want to confirm before we move on that we are accurate. This is New Jersey, the wildcard team. Is that correct? Thank you. Molly?
Hi, my name is Molly Russell. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of West Virginia, and that's the state West Virginia, not the western part of Virginia. And I focus in domestic violence law.
Hi, my name is Ed Philpott. I'm a trial lawyer. My office is in Laconia, New Hampshire, which is right smack in the middle of New Hampshire, about 4.5 inches from Canada. This is my, I think, 3rd or 4th national finals competition.
And we'd like you to introduce yourselves and perhaps your teacher.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a senior at Windsor-Plainsboro High School North.
Hi, I'm Efrain. I'm also a senior at High School North.
I'm Mega. I'm a junior at High School North.
Hello, my name is Albert Paulson. This is part of my course called Introduction to Political and Legal Experiences. And the We the People is really the cornerstone of the program. So thank you so much. This is always just such an amazing experience for all of us.
You're welcome. We feel the same way. All right. Are we ready to go to work? Okay. We are touching on Unit 4. How have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institutions and practices? We're reading question number 1 today. I'll read it in its entirety, and then you may begin your 4 minutes of prepared statements. Quote, it would be inconsistent with the constitutional separation of the executive and legislative powers to let the prerogative, meaning the pardon power, be exercised by the latter, unquote. What were the framers' reasons for giving the president the pardon power, and do you agree or disagree with them? Bullet 1, according to framer James Wilson, if the president abuses the pardon power, he can be impeached and prosecuted. Do you agree with Wilson? Why or why not? Bullet 2, in your opinion, what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors? You may begin.
Our entire governmental system is built upon the concept of checks and balances. The framers include the pardoning power in the Constitution to have a check on the judiciary branch. This check ensures that an institution can go against the judicial branch if they make a decision that is too harsh or does not deliver justice, as written in Federalist Number 74 by Alexander Hamilton.
We agree that the president's ability to pardon, as described by Hamilton, to a certain extent, since there are several instances in our country's history where it has been used for good. For example, a woman named Alice Johnson was unjustly sentenced to life for a first-time nonviolent drug offense. Her case resonated with many, even high-profile individuals such as Kim Kardashian, who had the resources to help. After serving 21 years of her sentence, she was fully pardoned by the Trump administration and was able to get back to her life after being wrongfully sentenced. The use of the pardon may be important in certain situations, especially in these times where systematic issues are appearing, specifically referring to the judicial system and their questionable judgment. For example, many people were all arrested on minor drug charges, but pardoned by the Obama administration as the righteousness of these claims came into question.
However, on the contrary, it could be argued that the Constitution does not limit the power of the president in relation to the pardoning power, as many anti-federalists asserted. They believed that this was too much power to grant to a single person, and the president could use this power to their own benefit. For example, George Mason reminded delegates at the Constitutional Convention that he may frequently pardon crimes that were advised by himself. The pardoning power may be necessary, but that doesn't mean that the president can or should be unleashed with it.
As James Wilson rightfully stated, the president must be held to certain standards if they use his power for wrong, namely impeachment and prosecution. The House is working on passing a bill that exemplifies the same sentiment. Introduced by Representative Adam B. Schiff, the Abuse of the Pardon Prevention Act, Section 2 of this bill requires that the Attorney General provide information of the presidential powers for further offenses. And Section 3 makes clear that a former president, due to another statute, the sitting president cannot be indicted for a federal offense, can be prosecuted for accepting bribes for a pardon.
Even further, if a president is seen to be going against the explicit rules of the process of pardoning, they must be held accountable. In an Office of Legal Counsel memo to President Nixon in the middle of the Watergate scandal in 1974, it was acknowledged that while the US Constitution may not explicitly prevent a president from pardoning himself, there's a fundamental legal principle that he'd be violating if he did. Additionally, under Article 2, Section 2, the president was given the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Abuse of the pardon power would be tantamount to high crimes and misdemeanors. The words high crimes and misdemeanors have acquired a broad meaning in US law. We believe that the term refers to criminal actions as well as any serious misuse or abuse of office, ranging from tax evasion to obstruction of justice, which must be punished with impeachment. These high crimes and misdemeanors are to be punished to the highest degree, regardless of the pardon power. Part of our stance is ensuring that the pardon power can never absolve these criminal actions.
As found but not explicitly defined in Section 4 of Article 2 of the United States Constitution, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The power to pardon will no doubt remain controversial, but its benefits are evident throughout history. If checks on the president are implemented, we believe a more perfect system will thus be created. Thank you.
Okay, I'll begin in our follow-up questioning. I'm curious about your seemingly interest in blaming the judiciary for long-term marijuana sentencing. Aren't there laws? Didn't that come from the legislature? Or were those judges just enforcing the laws?
Absolutely, but we do believe that everything works in parallel with each other. In this, we are talking about the judiciary branch because they are the ones that do send people to, that do sentence people. So, of course, the legislative branch does have a very high, is very much responsible for many of the people that go to jail on petty crimes of marijuana, but the judicial branch also plays a very big role in the systemic injustice that is being done to majority people of color.
Isn't that really a function of the federal sentencing guidelines, though, which are imposed on the judiciary by Congress, at least in the context of federal prosecutions?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. We're talking about a sentencing for drug crimes, at least in the context of federal crimes. Those sentences are delineated in the federal sentencing guidelines, which are created by Congress. So how does that fall to the judiciary if they're required to follow those guidelines?
Well, I believe that all of the branches have to follow their guidelines, obviously, but at the end of the day, the guidelines that were created were based on things that aren't necessarily just, and so therefore it isn't right. It's a collective effort in order to sentence someone. And so therefore, that's why multiple branches are involved in that.
So if President Obama wanted to not have people go to jail for long periods of time for small amounts of marijuana, why didn't he sponsor legislation to change that?
Well, it was unpopular at the time for marijuana to become legal. Okay. And the only reason it wasn't legal was because of the past, where they tried to suppress people who were using marijuana in a racist way. They wanted to send these people to jail, so that reason.
Molly?
If there are improper pardons, when a president has become a lame duck, what is the remedy? Is it impeachment? Is it something else? And I guess maybe a more basic question, are there improper pardons?
I believe that there can be improper pardons, as the pardon power doesn't have any explicit limits stated in the Constitution, because in Article 2, it says a very vague definition saying the president can grant reprieves and offenses. And so I believe that the pardon power can be misused, and as the president has the ability to pre-pardon someone before they even commit a crime, they can pardon like their own family members. They're also, I just believe in general that there should be certain checks on a president's pardon, as in there should be some sort of independent counsel with members from both parties. That way there can be a lower chance of partisanship in these types of pardons, and that way that can be almost way to prevent the president from being a lame duck, as you stated.
So,
Go ahead. You can go.
so what sort of limits, if do you think there should be limits on the pardon power? And if there should be, what kind of limits would you impose?
So one of the limits that I believe there should be is that because the president doesn't have to explicitly state all of the people that they pardon, it's not public record. I believe that it should be public record, that there should be a list of every single person that the president has pardoned. And that way that's a check, because the public will be able to see who they pardon, and that will make sure that the president doesn't pardon someone who doesn't deserve to be pardoned.
Adding on to Afreen, I do believe that there is a list, maybe not a complete list, of people who have been pardoned, but there isn't a very detailed explanation as to why. All it would say is a drug charge or a marijuana charge. There isn't a explicit details or reasonings behind it. I think that should also be public record as well, to ensure that the public knows what's going on and the government feels as though there are people watching them and seeing what they're doing, because it does affect all of us. We're the ones who elect these people into office, and so they should represent the ideals that we have, not just what benefits them in office.
So I wanted you to talk more about systematic injustice. That's a term that's stuck out to me when you brought up Alice Johnson. So what you're saying is that there is a system in place that is different for people of color than it is for others?
Absolutely. The justice system, as we have seen over the past year especially, is 100% places people of color at a disadvantage, whether that's with drug sentencing, as we were talking about, whether it's with going to jail for a longer period of time than perhaps a white person would.
Okay, so you see that, excuse me for interrupting, but you see that then as an appropriate use of the pardon.
Yes.
Do you think that's the way the framers saw the pardon to be used? Things like criminal activity, small-time criminal activity. Is there a conflict between that notion of solving social injustice and what the original pardon was supposed to be used for?
I believe that over time, back in the day, the framers could not or did not think of the future or like the way society is right now. And the way that, like, to build off of Mega's point and how the people of color have been discriminated against by this same but different system, you can even see like in another type of like environmental racism, how in lower income neighborhoods, these same like law enforcement officers.
She pulled the time on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The time card.
I'll go first and then we'll share the love with everyone else. I asked that question in the end because you really made me think about what the original intent. We hear that term a lot, the term original intent. And I tend to agree with your answer, by the way, now that we're just talking. The idea that the original intent of the pardon power may not be as important when there are things like systemic injustice happening. You may recall that I live in Minnesota, and we've had a lot of conversations about that. So I really thought you answered that exceptionally well, that when you look back in time, or as you said, back in the day, it may have been different, but we need to do this now. That's a way to take a stand. I like your Alice Johnson example. In fact, I'd forgotten about her, and I thank you for reminding me about her. I also like the notion of pre-pardon. That was, for a minute, it was funny, and then it's like, well, you know what? That's exactly what it is. They were pre-pardoning people. That was also an excellent response. And finally, I have one more here that I wrote down. I just need to find in my own printing. I thought you did a pretty good job of responding to improper pardons. And that's not easy to say. So together with your last answer, you were able to solve those issues, that things are different now. So should the pardon power. Go ahead, Molly.
I also really liked your discussion of the systemic issue. And I thought that your point was, everyone is not caught up to each other. So that's why the pardon is important, was well thought out. And, now that I think, I'm like, oh, that's such an obvious answer. That's why it's there. I thought that was very sound reasoning. I thought that you had good examples of people who were pardoned, and I had also forgotten, and I don't know how. I mean, everyone knows everything about the Kardashians. So I thought that example was good. And lastly, I thought that it was very clear that you have practiced together. You are a cohesive unit, and I appreciated where one of you couldn't exactly articulate how you wanted the other ones knew, like, oh, what she meant was this. I thought you guys did an excellent job.
So I was impressed that you had a particular focus around this question, and that you stuck with that focus and the premise of that focus throughout the process. I was looking for a little bit more on the political use of the pardon. Right. Why is it that one president might use it to pardon people of color who were over incarcerated by the federal sentencing guidelines, by the way, not necessarily by the judges who imposed them, but also in comparison to a pardon of Roger Stone, which was probably pretty purely political. But a great job, good teamwork, and I really wish you all the best of luck.
And keep in mind that if you should make it to the Monday session, that they will ask one or the other of the same two questions again. So write the feedback down and think about it as you prepare for it if you get to Monday. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank the students for their effort this morning, and I do want to let the judges know that they did this with they were expecting another colleague to join them, another student who we're not sure if they were having technical problems or anything like that. Yeah. So a special congratulations to you guys picking up your team members' work there.
I would not have even noticed. It was that good of a team.
Ed, there would have been another picture up there. You would have noticed.
Oh, that's true. Okay. I will tell you before we go that my wife went to West Windsor-Plainsboro High School before there was a North and South.
Okay. How about that? She's a pirate then.
She's a pirate.